There are two kinds of people when it comes to medical care. Those who truly desire to know the truth about their diagnosis and condition, and those who seek reassurance that what they believe they are being told is the truth. This is certainly the case with those afflicted with Lyme. Often we are needless victims of the latter because we have been taught since birth to trust our doctor's knowledge, opinion, and advice. But even doctors reside in one of the two camps of medical care. Those who dare to consider that perhaps what they have been taught in medical school may not be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and those that accept dogmatically only what they have been told, and not to question it. This rule applies to both conventional doctors, as in your typical family practitioners, and the so-called specialists, and to a large degree, alternative holistic doctors as well. In 99.9% of these cases, well-intentioned doctors believe they are doing their best to provide the best care possible to their patients. However, this has absolutely nothing to do with the accuracy of diagnosis when it comes to Lyme disease, as all practitioners are conditioned to recommend treatment of symptoms and their effects, and not cure causes. Often seen is the endless cycle of those who blindly follow the conventional path, with no eyes to see and no ears to hear, but for a small percentage of those, seemingly by fate alone, find the true cause, and even more narrowly, find the path to the cure. To break this cycle is to become knowledgeable. As it has been said, knowledge is power. For those who have the knowledge, it is not their responsibility to force other people into believing something different from what they are being told, but merely to hold the light on the path for those who have the desire and the will to seek real knowledge instead of relying on the emotional underpinnings of their and their doctor's belief. The inherent problem that underlies the lack of desire and will to find real knowledge is the disease itself. Unlike other chronic diseases like heart disease and cancer, where the patient is earnestly trying to find out for sure, the Lyme victim often lacks the reason and the will to find out about their condition when it is presumed as possibly Lyme. The common excuses are, well, I don't recall being bitten by a tick, or even if they have, I never got the bullseye rash, or I've been told that it can't be Lyme because of where I live, or I've been told that it is something else. These are the typical excuses that a Lymer will roll out in defense of their lack of desire or will to find out. All doctors, but for the very few Lyme-literate doctors, remain unaware that Lyme and the related co-infections are transmitted not only from tick bites from infected ticks, but through the public blood supply, passed to the unborn child from an infected mother, and transmitted as a sexually transmitted disease, or an STD. And conventional medicine is all too willing to convince you of a brand of disease that they can continue to treat indefinitely without ever seeking an actual cause and cure, which would be our so-called chronic diseases that they claim there is no cure for. This continued perpetuation of the ignorance of Lyme disease, its widespread permeating of the population, and the resultant suffering in terms of cost and misery is staggering. Mainly through denial, the Lyme victim seeks to justify his disease by belief in their doctor's misdiagnosis, seeking reassurance that their doctor is correct by any means possible, meanwhile earnestly and sometimes militantly defending this position against anything to do with considering Lyme as the culprit. The main reason for this is that Lyme is primarily a neuropsychiatric condition that affects the central nervous system, including the brain, where the seat of reason and intelligence resides. When reason and logic have become disabled, the patient is no longer capable of the kind of objective judgment that otherwise might occur to a cancer or heart disease patient. The militant defiance to anything to do with Lyme could be a curious indicator of the disease, where reason and logic have taken flight. When the patient's decision-making ability doesn't make sense, look for Lyme. Of course, the objective would be to rule out Lyme first, before reaching this condition where the patient refuses any longer to consider Lyme as the cause, after being indoctrinated by their doctor's insistence on a chronic condition where there is no cure. After a patient is invested in their doctor's opinion, they have by this time a lot of time and money invested in their misdiagnosis, so there is a natural resistance to giving up the doctor's opinion for another even more likely option. The best possible scenario in these cases is not to rule out Lyme before Lyme is ruled out, and preferably ruled out first. When the symptoms are initially mild and subtle, such as mild anxiety, depression, difficulty concentrating, these seem manageable at first, and this is where the most common and earliest misdiagnoses occur. It is easy to build on these as the symptoms get worse, and the patient risks never finding out. There should be a standard screening for Lyme early on in the diagnosis, but until the test appears in the grocery aisle next to the home pregnancy tests, it is up to each and every one of us, whether we are the ones potentially with the disease or our loved ones. Don't rule out Lyme until Lyme has been ruled out, and do it first.